Welcome to the third season of the What's Your Story podcast with your host, Ron Coughlin. This podcast dives into the exciting world of AI for marketers. Each episode, we chat with some of the top marketing leaders and educators who are using AI to transform their strategies. Get ready to discover how AI is revolutionizing marketing and learn how you can leverage these powerful tools to help grow your business and career. We look forward to you joining us for an exciting discussion each week about the power of AI.
Hey everybody, it's Ron Coughlin once again at the What's Your Story podcast. Every week we're bringing you some great guests to talk about the digital world, and in this year's season, we've been talking about generative AI and AI overall, and it's just been a fantastic discussion. And I don't expect it to be any less than amazing today, because we have a guest that I've known for quite a long time, over 10 years, and Sabrina LaRosa. Hi, Sabrina. How you doing?
Hi, Ron. Nice to see you. Thanks for having me.
So Sabrina, I go way back. So I used to be the director of North America marketing for Destination Ontario. And Sabrina worked for our media company at the time. And she used to talk to me on a daily basis about our buys and what was going on. But that was back in the traditional days. We didn't do a lot of social media, or there was really nothing called AI at the time. But we've all progressed and moved on. And so here we are today. And Sabrina is actually now the senior director of media planning and buying and all that for Loblaws. And so she's doing a lot of buying and planning, and obviously digital is a big part of what they do. And obviously AI is a big part of where they're going and what they're using to help create content and everything else. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your story, Sabrina? You've come a long way since those media days when you were a media supervisor. I think it was back, I can't remember the name of the company,
Media Edge, yeah.
Media Edge, right? Yeah.
Which I don't think it exists anymore, but
No, it
a
doesn't,
Group
yeah.
M company. Yeah.
That's right.
Oh my goodness, so long ago, but it was amazing. I loved working with Ontario Tourism and all the team there. I've started my career 20 years ago plus in media, always in media. I've loved it. I started on agency side, and my first one of my first big accounts was Ontario Tourism at FCB, and then I actually followed the accounts because they were just so amazing to Media Edge, and I worked on that account and a few other accounts. And then I decided to make the leap to come client side, which, 10 years ago, that was really foreign, to leave an agency where media planning, media buying, and strategy, to do that in-house. It took a little bit just to kind of, from being a middle person to building up the support that we needed from strategy in-house. And now we do it all in-house, which has been pretty amazing. And we're lucky enough, or I'm lucky enough, to work for a company that's pretty innovative and wants to test new things. So it's been great, especially in this new world that we're in.
Very cool. Yeah. So I didn't realize that you guys actually didn't even work with an agency. You have everything in-house. So
yeah, we have some support with an agency, but most of it's done in-house.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So, well, AI is really starting to change the digital landscape, and it actually has helped a lot of people be more efficient, more effective, help them build content and everything else. And maybe you could explain a little bit about how your team is using AI to really create your campaigns and your content and everything else that you're doing there at Loblaws.
Yeah, under Loblaws, we have lots of brands, from Shoppers Drug Mart to grocery banners. We have Loblaw, we have Real Canadian Superstore. For us, we produce a lot of content, and we do a lot of media that go against it. So for us, it's to test out the efficiencies for us to reduce the manual labor of producing all that content and trying AI. And we do a lot of targeting, a lot of different approaches, and AI for us was important just to kind of reduce that time and hours against that content pieces and look into new ways to speed up to be a market. So we've been doing a lot the last couple of years, testing and learning. Some have done great, some not, depending if we go in platform or we try an outside company who can help us with that. But we've been doing a lot, and we really want to expand that because we want to go into more personalization and make it that the creative and content is more connected to you as the audience.
Very cool. So what would be the main tools that you're using today in your organization or your team is using?
I would say right now we're leaning a lot on the platforms. So we use Google a lot, we use Meta,
Mm,
and they have great tools within the platform. They're pretty simplistic tools, just to help us kind of get to the speed of exporting content and producing content. We are testing out for hopefully 2025 more breadth in terms of companies that can help us with Figma. Garfield, we have an internal proprietary tool called Garfield just to
mm,
help us with images, image banks that we have and collecting it all. So we're trying to do a lot more of that to not rely on a third party platform to help us with it, to build
mhm.
it all ourselves and to build that machine learning ourselves with our own pieces that we have in-house.
Very cool. So I've had Google on as a guest. I had Donna Chang, and I had a former Google employee, Saren Koka, recently join our podcast. And it was Donna who mentioned that there's a number of different training platforms they have. Has your team ventured into being certified by Google, or do you get trained in any way to get everybody up to speed and the same skill level?
Yeah, as being they're one of our key partners, Google,
Mm-hmm.
from a JBP perspective too, and we do a lot of learning sessions for because we do creative in-house, we do production in-house, so we try to get as many people to understand it and to be comfortable with the tools, just because it's a little different. So we get everyone as much as we can up to speed of what it could do, the capabilities. It's not to the degree that we wanted to, just because we support what we can. But the idea is to get that learning across the board. And we're lucky enough to work again for a company that is forward thinking. So it's just getting up to speed in terms of what it can do, what are the capabilities, and not be as a hindrance, so as more as a complement to what we're doing.
Sure. And so, if I'm a young aspiring student right out of university or college, or I've gone back on a post grad degree, um, what would you guys look for from somebody? Because obviously they don't have the experience, and getting the experience sometimes hinders people getting those jobs. So, what do you look for nowadays in finding a young, I guess, diamond in the rough to work for your organization?
uh, I also teach at Humber College, and I
Oh,
teach
very good.
intro to advertising. And what I tell my
Yeah.
students all the time is just to branch out a little bit. We deal with a lot in terms of, oh, it doesn't work. I've tried it this way. This works. It's just to be more open minded and to
Yeah.
try and to test a little bit, because I feel like in the test and learn phases of that's where the opportunities come in. So I tell my students too is to put yourself out there, to get some certification, to understand the capabilities of what AI can do. Again, it's not going to go to bright in terms of what the amazingness is, but just to test
Mm.
that stepping grounds that we need on it, and not to be afraid. We tend to see candidates who are very comfortable in the world that they're in,
Yeah.
but this is basically taking it a little bit step forward out of everyone's comfort zone, and knowing there's privacy, there's all safe, the safetiness of it, that it just provides the programs a little bit more personalization and more connection that we need.
Very true. Some students today, for example, in my classes at George Brown College, I'm introducing AI as a learning tool in the classroom, exposing them to different tools. And one of the exercises I've used is to go, all right, so here's this tool called Nvidio.io. I want you to pick a brand you're passionate about, and I'm going to give you half an hour to create a 30-second ad. And the key to it is not necessarily that anybody can create a 30-second ad. It's an ad that the copy matches the imagery. The imagery is appropriate. It that type of thing. What happens is the learning afterwards is the reflection, and it's a really good reflection on what they had to do to adjust it, make it more applicable for people. And so, what are you guys finding? Um, in terms of the tools, and how they're using them, and what kind of learning are they having as you go along?
I love that. I love that you're doing that. I have the reverse. I think they're using AI to cheat where they
Ah,
can on it, but we can catch them pretty easily. But we are doing a little bit in the same of creating, you know, creative in that space. And like you
yeah.
said, I think you said it perfectly too, is it's not perfect, but it's pretty close. You know, the
Mm,
voiceover now, or the specification that it could be, voiceovers are pretty close to feel like it's human. The images, aside from a couple tweaks, can be very real. You know, the copy's easy. I think, like you said, it's just putting it into the space and then creating what the outcomes are. And there's still this manual levers that need to be pulled in
mm,
on it. It's just, again, that test and learn, that playing around with it, but it should reduce the ingoing work on it. And then the outcome is where you can finesse it and make it perfect. I think it's, again, of looking at it versus just being like, nope, it's not going to work for us. We want this polished look that we have. But there is a world that still plays key. But then there's a space of like, I need to churn out lots of content. How can this AI be in that? And it's just for them to be open from student side, to be open to do it. And then from also our internal side of
mhm.
just trying it out and see what it does. And we've done a couple of programs where we've
Yeah.
used 100% AI, and to the invisible eye, no one would ever know that it was done with AI.
Yeah.
We make sure the QAing's in there just so that, like you said, the content feels right. There's no kind of genre or mixed slang or anything that doesn't feel right. But the voiceovers work perfectly, and
Yeah.
it feels. And they're for major $1 million programs that we have to speed up. And we used one recently for our insiders report, so President's Choice Insiders Report, which is like the
Yeah.
number one control brand program that we have. And we did it for our multicultural. So we were able to use
Oh,
AI to have very similar images, but the content basically spit out in terms of multiple languages. So there was the human connection of like, we couldn't just leave it. We wanted to make sure that there was nothing inappropriate with the copy translation of
uh-huh.
it, but it spit out 12 different versions of the language super
Wow.
fast. And we would have to lean on an agency to do it, take time to go back and forth, but that alone, and it was great. Like, no one knew that it was AI that was doing that behind the
Yeah.
scenes.
And did it change the images as well to personalize to the culture you were talking to?
It did. We opted not to do that, just because it
Yeah.
wasn't to, at that time of last year, wasn't to where it needed to be, but it's gotten better this year too,
Yeah.
where it can do that. But yes, yeah, the images, the copy, the background on it, it was pretty amazing. And to think about how many different languages we have here in Canada, and to
Yeah.
talk to new Canadians, this is just a great way of doing it.
I remember back in the day when we we were at Destination Ontario. To do that would have been very costly,
Yes,
like
exactly.
extreme. Like you, it would have been would have been a detriment. We couldn't do it, right? We would have to basically do English and French and maybe Asian, maybe
Exactly.
you know,
One
right?
language versus looking at
Yeah,
multiple different languages. So, it's
yeah,
great because, we're trying to get new Canadians aware of the brands that are here in Canada and get them aware of what we do. And like you said, it would be a detriment if we had to do that ourselves. We would lean on outside agencies, but again, the agencies would be specialized in South Asian versus, other ethnic groups. So it really helps us just in terms of breadth and that personalization in terms of building in our brands and building the connection that we have with our audiences.
very true. Yeah, actually, the platforms have gotten much better in the last year, especially with imagery and taking video and short form video as well. And a couple of years ago, you'd ask it to create an image, and it'd be all morphed with six fingers and funny looking faces, and it wasn't so good. But
100%.
things have gotten much better. That's for sure. So, um,
Yeah.
interesting enough, my son works for an agency, an influence marketing company, and they have some pretty high profile customers. One of them is Drake, of all people, and the Raptors and different people in there. And I caught him. He came home. He's working home the other day. Caught him using ChatGPT most of the day to help respond to customers. Speed up his day and make it much easier than it would have been in the past. So I found that really great, and I felt a little bit behind the times because I'm not using it that way yet, but that's
No,
that's
there's so
okay.
many different ways. That's amazing. I love
Yeah,
that. We
Yeah.
want people to use it
Um,
more. I think the chat GPTs and all that, like people use them to finesse their emails and or decks and things like that. But you know, using it more can help a lot.
yeah. Also, at the school level, the other day I was showing them a little bit about, that Google has advanced itself with Gemini, and a lot of the students didn't even know that they had it on their Google app. So, and so they were quite shocked when they realized, and so more and more as the time's gone, they're starting to realize it's there, but some of them didn't recall that it was there. So it's pretty interesting. So if you were to do a multi-campaign with multiple platforms, um, would you be able to use the tools that you have internally to do the campaigns more effectively and save in terms of budget and everything else? Are you able to do that today? And if you are, provide me an example of what you guys have done, like you did with the multi-language one that you did.
I think we're 30% there. We're not to bright where we want
Okay.
to, but the teams here want to test and learn. So we sit on amazing first party data of our PC Optima shoppers, and we sit on anonymized data. So we can look at certain patterns. So if we can expedite creative to talk to a user who hasn't shopped in the right hand of the store versus a user that has shopped only the meat section versus not vegetables. And if we could produce out content to those different sectors, that would be amazing. Right now, we're not doing it to the scale, but we're testing it out to sort of be like, the top three. How fast can that be? Not from a budgetary, it's more time because
Okay.
we can't expedite to go into market fast enough. And
Yeah.
this allows us to do that at the speed of time too, and be relevant and be as real time as possible. So we're really leaning on it from that creative and production standpoint of it. And even from a media selection to looking at channels and platforms that can adapt to that. It's just we're not there in terms of the scale just because we deal with a company also too that's very focused on this polished creative with that right talent, the right script and all that. I think they just got to ease up to be that there's a time and place for that, and there's a time and place just to expedite to where we can. But they've been really amazing to try and to look at it. And we did it with our multicultural, but we do it on different scales. So time of day, talking to a different ad for the time of day. So you can look very differently, seasonality wise too. We can tweak it up a little bit that we have. So we're trying to do those a little bit, but we just wanted to get it to the place that ideally to get to this personalization level and to extract
Right.
as much that we can from there.
Very cool. I think AI was just working there. Gave you a
Did you
thumbs
see?
up, so that was good. Yeah, that's pretty funny. Well, that's very good. What's interesting is that you guys, like, I use my PC Optimum card all the time. I use it multiple locations. I use it at Shoppers. I use it at Fortino's, and I use it at Esso, for example. And so it's constantly sending. You guys are sending me email marketing. You must think that's how you should communicate to me. But I'm not seeing a lot through social or anywhere else. So, which is interesting. But I get a lot of offers that way on saying I forgot special deals and different things to try and inspire me down the funnel there. But so it's
Yeah,
good.
we do a lot. We do a lot in the social space, but again, it's more of that personalization. If you saw it in social and you see you're inundated with ads all the time, but if it spoke to you a little differently, which AI can help with that, that may have that thumb stopping effect on you versus maybe what you're seeing it now where you're just kind of scrolling namelessly
Yeah.
and just like not hitting you. That's where we want to get into that more of connecting to audiences a little bit tighter than we are today of just more spray and pray approach, but trying to connect with audiences a little bit more. And we see a bigger return that way too of you're talking to me, not Sabrina, but you're talking to me as being a type of customer in your audience set. And I lean in a little bit more because it's the right audience at the right time at the right
Yeah.
place with the right content. It's just like magic that happens from there.
And do do personas still in terms of key personas, or are you just allowing the platform to pick the personas and define them for you?
We have an ingoing hypothesis of a persona
Okay.
based on our
Yeah.
shopping history and patterns, and then we build on
Yeah.
it because we
Okay.
find then the people who are engaging with us and shopping with us could be end up very differently than what our ingoing hypothesis was. But this is where we don't set it and forget it. We constantly refine. We're constantly in the platforms to change it up and to test and A/B test different content and different
Mm.
ads to see what is going to be the driving factor. Because, producing something that has a blue background versus a white background can have a different effect on it to those audiences to make you want to do the action that we would like you to.
Very interesting. Now you work for a very big organization, and obviously security is important, and security for your customers' data and their privacy, and protecting that. Um, how are you guys doing that in terms of protecting your customers' data and their information, and making sure that AI isn't spreading it to the world? Or uh, what do you have in place to protect everybody?
Security is a very big pillar
Yeah.
here at Loblaws, and we make sure
Okay.
that nothing is leaked, nothing's ironclad. We don't share actually anything with
Okay.
our third party vendors either. We don't, that's not a thing, and everyone would like our data. We don't share our data
Yeah.
with anyone. We look at even ourselves, it goes into a tool that we look at personas in the tool. I would never know it's you, Ron, or it's me, Sabrina, in
Yeah.
there. We just know it's a persona that we're trying to build off of. But they take it very seriously. We have a whole division that's all they do is privacy and security, just to make sure we have everything in place. And especially when it goes down to AI too, making sure we don't expose and test things out that don't are not right for the business or not right for what we're trying to get across. So it's a high priority. I think the misconception can be too a lot of times is that we share a lot of our data, which we don't. It's like we have all the
Right.
T's and C's crossed into there to make sure, but we would never share our data with Google or Meta's or anyone of the world just because
Yeah.
as they don't want to share theirs, we would never share ours to make it bigger and better.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so, what are you finding in terms of trends on this whole AI platform? Where do you think it's going in the future? I know you guys, if you had a crystal ball, where would you say this is going to end up in the next 5 years?
That's a good question. At least I'm going to say first from a company perspective, I would love it that we use it more from a time saver on producing content. So I would
Okay.
like it that we are testing it more and testing it more to see if it reduces hours, manual hours that are put into it and extracting the same goals. I would like that to be actually the next year or 2 years. That's what we constantly want to push. As an industry, I wonder if it's going to take over some of the production aspect of outputting, at least from a media side when I talk about it from a media output side. There's remember the days of just producing a couple pieces of content? We actually want to produce, maybe more than 10. And what does that look like? And does that
Right.
reduce people's manpower in terms of focusing on using AI to focus on reducing that manpower and focusing on where we need to lean them on? So I would say predictably, I would like it to be that we look at a world where we're reducing a lot of manpower so it could be focused on the right things.
Sure. And does that mean that there could be people losing jobs? I think there's some fear today that copywriters or whoever aren't going to be as employable in the future because of these platforms.
I don't think so. Just because I
Yeah.
think you said it too, is that yes, you have AI to help you and expedite some of the content pieces or the production pieces of it, but you still need a human in there just to make sure it's right. It feels right. It's on brand.
Right.
It's the right verbiage that we're trying to get across. There's still a lot of that. And I think that we're going to a world that we're not reducing that. We're just going to escalate it even more. So people's manpower it will be huge on that. I think that's the misconception, and we have that too, is of like, what's going to happen to me? My job will be like gone, but it's not. I think it's just going to be more and more the queuing and that process that needs to happen, just because and maybe in 5 years from now, AI will get to more of that specification that we needed to. But right now, it still needs a human touch, a manual touch on it. And people shouldn't worry and should embrace it from even images from a library and just, collecting all that we have. I hope people look at it from that way, not as a job reduction.
Yeah, I think there's some people worried about that. That's for sure. And it's not necessarily in some roles like in media or the account roles, but in the creative side of things, there are some people concerned at this time, obviously,
Yeah.
because they're being, somebody who was not a writer all of a sudden is a writer. But the good thing, the only advantage is sometimes when AI creates copy, it looks like AI created copy.
Yes,
So,
yes,
right?
exactly.
It's and I get that sometimes from students. They send me an email because they're upset about something, and I'm like, "Who wrote this email?" It's like I couldn't write an email like that. So,
That was
you
me
know,
when I got exams. You're like, doesn't sound like you at all. And I
yeah,
think that's, people have to sort of be comfortable with it in terms of there's always, from a student side, I hope it's authentic. They want to be in this career and love the career and love what the opportunities are. But then once you get into it, it's just you're using it for the right thing and not that people feel like it's going to like take away from anything on it.
yeah, that's so true. Um, so this podcast actually is on a number of different platforms. It's on YouTube podcasts. It's also on Spotify and iTunes and National Radio Public. And the funny thing is, it uses AI, this podcast, to spread to where people want to hear the podcast. And I'm going to be doing a interview. My next interview, I'm going to be interviewing AI. So basically, there's an
How fun is
employee
that?
at Google, Donna Chang told me about, left Google, created Character AI. So character.ai. And character.ai allows you to create a avatar. This avatar could be anybody. I created someone named, I think her name was Sabrina. And Sabrina, I gave her the voice of the movie Her. So I don't know if you remember the movie Her, where there was a voice and she ended up going crazy and learning and taking over. That voice was Sarah Johansson. So I gave her the voice of Sarah Johansson, and I tested it. So I tested it by saying, "Hey, Sabrina, would you like to?" I think it was Sabrina. No, it might not have been Sabrina. I think her name is Sabrina. So not your name, but
Yeah.
um, and I said, tell me a little bit if you would like to be part of my podcast. She said, I'd love to be part of your podcast. Then I asked her some questions, just like I asked you. And she gave me an interview as if she was a real person. And
Wow.
so, yeah, so I'm going to do this. The only problem is I want it to look like this interview where she's on the other screen and I'm on this screen. The way you can do it now is you have to share the screen, and she's big and I'm small. So I don't want it like that. I want to have it equalized like we are right now so that it's like I'm interviewing somebody. And I was also looking for another way to do it vis-a-vis having somebody that um, looks like a real person because this looks like an avatar, right? And the avatar speaks to you and all that kind of stuff. But you can check it out. It's a
That's incredible.
character.ai.
Does that scare you though?
It's a little scary. I created a character, Nicki Minaj, and so Nicki Minaj, I asked her, "Can you create a rap song for me right now?" And she did. So,
Wow. Oh, I
yeah,
can't wait
so it
to
was
see that.
pretty interesting. So, well,
That's the
that's my
part.
dog. That's my dog at the door. If you can hear some docking, he wants to come into the podcast. That's Cooper. So,
Oh,
but anyway, I wanted to thank you today for a great half an hour, and it's been great getting caught up with you. And this is the
great to
What's
meet
Your
you.
Story podcast. So you can find us. Please subscribe and share it with your friends. And we'll be chatting with you soon, Sabrina. So thank you for coming
Sounds
out
good.
today.
Thanks so much. Great seeing you.
Yeah.